Poštovani gledaoci, situacija u Bosni i Hercegovini je situacija o kojoj se govori na svjetskoj razini. Govori se i u Washingtonu, govori se i u Briselu, govorilo se nedavno i u Madridu kada je bio summit NATO-a. Jedan od onih koji vrlo često govore o Bosni i Hercegovini, koji zna vrlo dobro Bosnu i Hercegovinu, boravio je ovdje ne samo kao predstavnik međunarodne zajednice, nego kao i međunarodni mirovnjak tokom 90-ih, a danas je profesor na univerzitetu Johns Hopkins je Edward Joseph, naš stari poznanik i prijatelj kada je u pitanju analiza kako Washington gleda na Bosnu i Hercegovinu i kako gleda na region Zapadnog Balkana, i o svemu tome ćemo razgovarati u nastavku. Professor, welcome back to program N1.
Dobar dan, Esmir, drago mi je što sam opet s vama i evo tu sam na raspolaganju.
Professor, you recently spoke with the former Prime Minister and former Foreign Minister of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Zlatko Lagumdžija, and that was wide-ranging 2 hours conversation about everything what's going in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And one element which was key in your discussion was the reform of the electoral law and what everybody wants to do and how to move Bosnia and Herzegovina forward. In that discussion, Mr. Lagumdžija tried to explain to American population or your population at the Johns Hopkins University that we have Dalton brothers, the 4 people who are key to resolve this situation, Mr. Izetbegović, Mr. Dodik, Mr. Čović, and Mr. Komšić. But there is opposing view which you try to challenge him is that we are focusing on wrong elements on all of this. So what are the wrong elements of focus at the moment?
Esmer, thank you very much. I will tell you, you put it very well. There are some very wrong focus now. The problem is in Bosnia and Herzegovina is a lack of perspective. And I would explain this in 3 points because really, it's urgent. We talk about critical moments that a country faces. Schmidt is either going to or not going to impose something. So this really is a critical moment, and it's urgent that there is some perspective on the situation. I would make 3 points in this very complex topic. I would make 3 points. This is the first, is that the main threat to Bosnia and Herzegovina is not in Zagreb, it is in Belgrade. There should be no mistake about that. That is not to say there's nothing problematic about the stance in Zagreb or among Croats like and HDZ, like the leader Dragan Čović. But the structural problem in the country is with the Republika Srpska, the creation of this entity that has enormous rights, territorial contiguity with Serbia, and the fact that the main leader there, Milorad Dodik, has been allowed to steadily degrade the overall situation of the country. So that's the key point. And this dispute, this bitter feud, and all of this furor and uproar over these Schmidt proposals are a gift to Dodik, to Alexander Vučić in Belgrade, and to their allies in Russia. So that's the main thing, is to remember the problem and to remember that Croat Bosniak issues are in many respects a function of this problem. The federation does not exist in some isolation. It exists in relationship to Republika Srpska. And this was the core mistake of the US and the EU in approaching these issues. There were 3 fundamental questions. The issue of election integrity, there's the Ljubić verdict, and also Sejdić-Finci. And the mistake, beginning with the US and EU approach, was to only address the Ljubić concerns, that is, concerns of Croats, without also addressing the concerns Bosniaks have about the entire country, and that is principally through Sejdić-Finci, Zornić, Pilav, these other cases. And when Sarajevo-based parties approached for example, the US negotiator and with solutions about Sejdić-Finci, they were told, no, we have to be RS neutral, that we will only consider issues between Croats and Bosniaks, and we will not. And this was the fundamental mistake that has led us to the situation with Schmidt and this intense controversy. You cannot just address concerns of within the federation without also addressing this overarching concern of the relationship of the federation within Bosnia-Herzegovina and the main state, Izmir. So that's my main point about the mistake. There are two other points, if you'll permit me, of how to get out of this. Okay, the second point is there's an urgent need for perspective about these electoral issues that Schmidt, the proposals are meant to address. That is this about the election law and about the Federation Constitution. The smartest thing, the wisest thing that anyone has said about these issues, this whole issue of whether 1 per canton or changing this or 3% threshold or any of these issues, the wisest thing anyone said was the president of the Constitutional Court, Mirsad Ceman, in his dissent to Ljubic. And what he said was, these are very complex issues. And unfortunately, we don't see that complexity reflected in the commentary. We see these sharp polemics. Everything is focused about Dragan Čović and his motives without looking at the wider concerns. If you read Judge Ceman's dissent, he disagrees with the Ljubic verdict, but he does not dismiss Croat concerns. He does not say, I don't need to talk about proportionality because Croats and HDZ are overrepresented. He does not say, we don't need to consider constituent peoples because the European Court of Human Rights has already addressed that. To the contrary, Ceman, who disagrees with the Ljubic verdict, addresses all of these issues, takes them seriously, and this is what's missing here. The opportunity here for individuals to address the underlying issues, and instead all focuses on Dragan Čović as if there is no Croat polity to be dealt with, as if there are no Croat citizens. And when we talk about creating a civic state and moving the worthy aspiration of Bosnia-Herzegovina as a civic state, you cannot have a civic state without civic discourse, without engaging with fellow citizens on these and dealing with their concerns. Now, that brings me to the third point here, is the opportunity, the missed opportunity by all of these polemics, sole focus on Dragan Čović, sole certainty about the bad motives of Schmidt, the bad motives of the US, without, as if everyone else has only pure motives, without addressing and taking advantage of the opportunity that Schmidt has offered. Schmidt has backed off in position. And he has said, I want constructive proposals. Bring me constructive proposals. And that's what's Izmir. This is what's being missed here. This is the great opportunity, the golden opportunity that citizens of Bosnia-Herzegovina who want to see progress and want to see a breakthrough out of this long-standing deadlock are missing. Instead of these polemics, what we need are solutions. Give Schmidt solutions, and in my suggestion, these solutions, the best ones, the most credible ones, would be done in joint form among Bosniaks, Croats, citizens, others, working together, present Schmidt with a viable compromise, and maybe some parties, political parties in Bosnia-Herzegovina will even back it. Please.
But Professor, you're saying that in conjunction of all elements to come to the solution, but Schmidt himself didn't include anybody else from the society except the politicians who are always bickering between themselves. The US administration, the EU, when they started negotiating about this, they didn't include anybody else than political parties. And they removed everything from the institutions of Bosnia and Herzegovina. They put everything in the discussions between political leaders and their cronies to find the solution, which is not anywhere near to be decided. And in line with that, you said that the Schmidt has backed off. Why did he back off? Is it because he doesn't have a support of international community for his proposals and his ideas, or just that he has a political wisdom to try to give them space to find the solution?
Okay, first, I'm not here to defend how the US, EU dealt with this issue beforehand. I already said this cardinal mistake here was approaching these difficult federation issues in isolation without at the same time addressing Sejdić-Finci and the other cases. And really, if you think about it, it was a very serious mistake. This whole approach of RS neutrality. The way it should have worked is absolutely citizen engagement, civil society engagement, political party engagement, and producing a joint joint federation proposal tackling election reform and Sejdić-Finci and the related cases, and then presenting this to Republika Srpska, and then engaging same way, Republika Srpska in this. And here's what I would say: if Republika Srpska, if Serbs refused to engage in good faith negotiations, then that would arrive at a crisis that is a useful crisis for Bosnia and Herzegovina, instead of this useless crisis that we have now, and with people just absolutely continuing to just foment on this crisis without offering solutions. And I repeat again, Esmir, the solutions lie. If you want a civic state, you have to build a civic state. A civic state cannot just be declared. You have to build it. There's been 28 years since the Dayton Agreement, 28 years of potential for outreach, of international support for civil society to work together to build it. Where do we see any of these, as I asked Zlatko Lugumdzija, where are the protests now? Oh, in Sarajevo, yes. But why are there not protests elsewhere? Why not go out and reach out in Herzegovina, reach out in eastern Bosnia, and now engage? And I say again, even if there was not adequate consultation, now is the opportunity. And the point here, Esmir, and this is my main one, is to stop with the polemics. Stop with all of this just criticizing and tearing down. What Schmidt has offered is, he said he wants ideas. Now is the time to give them. Give compromise solutions, the best way, jointly done, not just unilateral, here's what I think, but listening to the concerns of the other side and stopping with all of these threats to walk out of Dayton, threats to go for regionalization, threats about drones and hunters, and these kind of polemics. This is not helping Bosnia-Herzegovina and friends of Bosnia-Herzegovina, and I think I'm one, should be appealing that now is the time for solutions, not polemics.
Did Schmidt made the mistake when he basically lost his temper in Gorazde some days ago, when my dear colleague Adisa Imamovic have asked him just a simple question about this situation, when he started basically yelling and screaming and even using words like garbage when he was describing politicians? Is that showing his frustration with this situation, or he's just trying to show to people that it is time to start speaking what's on their mind when it comes to this entire situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina?
Okay, I can't speak to what was in Schmidt's mind, obviously, this is a mistake. You don't react in anger to journalists' questions, even if you take exception to them. A journalist is doing their job when they pose questions, even questions you consider provocative. So obviously it was a mistake, and I'm not here to explain.
Professor, I'm asking you as someone who has experience of negotiating with the Bosnian politicians in hard issues and very contagious situations over the years. You dealt with them and you know them. So I'm asking you, as someone who knows how the entire situation in Bosnia is working, because it looks like he started showing his frustration with what is going on, trying to push something to be done. And you said 28, 29 years is passed since we have those negotiations and everything else.
Yes. Okay, look, he reacted the way he reacted, and this was a mistake, and that's clear. But I think this is what I would say, Asmir, and as someone who has worked in the region, and I will say this, 3 years during the war in Bosnia-Herzegovina and 3 years after the war. And in all over the war, all over the country, in every context of the conflict, including in Bihać, Brčko, Mostar, Sarajevo, Žepa, in every context. Look, I think the citizens of the region, including the citizens of Bosnia-Herzegovina, have a great capacity for candor. I think that they do, and I think they appreciate that. And let's remember, the legendary Richard Holbrooke was not exactly soft-spoken in his approach. So this continuing discussion about Schmidt and his reaction is missing the point. The country, I'm going to say it again, is at a critical point. It really is, because Schmidt either will or will not impose. So this isn't just the usual typical crossroads. He either will or will not impose. And here's my key point, Esbir. Focusing on his this reaction of Schmidt in that thing, or focusing on zeroing in only on Dragan Čović and how terrible and bad of actor he actually is missing the point. The point is to give Schmidt, test him at his word. He says he wants solutions. Give them, not unilateral solutions, not, oh, just declare a civic state and everything is fine. Do them in the spirit that Judge Mirsad Ceman did, tackling the underlying issues that are present in Ljubić about disproportionate representation, about the legitimacy of representation, about the question that I discussed with Zakonu Gumji, which he was candid about, Željko Komšić, and the fact that many Bosniaks and others in the Federation in Sarajevo know that it's wrong. To this repeated election of Željko Komšić is a mistake, and that it's wrong, and that it is subverting the spirit of Dayton and of a civic state in that sense. To do that. And they're missing the opportunity with these polemics, Esmir. The real opportunity now is for solutions. Get beyond polemics and consider the perspectives of the other side. Work with the other side about their concerns. And they must acknowledge the concerns that, for example, on Ljubić, that Bosniaks have, and about the concern that Judge Ceman raises about the territorialization of Bosnia-Herzegovina, and about the danger of that through the Ljubić verdict. But those, as Judge Ceman says, the president of the Constitutional Court of Bosnia-Herzegovina says, these are complex issues. And my objection is that people acting with these polemics as if everything is so simple and certain, and not tackling as Judge Ceman does. The reality is that there is a verdict in the Ljubić case that there's a majority opinion. It has to be addressed, as do the Sejdić-Finci and related verdicts. That's the challenge. That's the opportunity. Please.
Okay, Professor, you mentioned Željko Komšić and you explained a bit about him, but what with Mr. Izetbegović and Mr. Dodik? What is their role in all of this? Because we know that Izetbegović has his own part of responsibility when it comes to federation and his relationship with Dragan Čović, because they are in a coalition for 8 years now on a level of federation, and both of their parties are major parties in government of a federation. On the other side, we have Milorad Dodik, whose disruptive politics are now strengthened by, as you mentioned, Serbia, but also Russia, but also Hungary through Viktor Orban and his contacts with Milorad Dodik?
Okay, first of all, Esmir, as someone with experience in the country from the war, what I do not like are these easy comparisons. Bakir Izetbegovic, Dodik, Čović, as if everyone is the same. Čović is the same as Dodik, is the same as Izetbegovic. Look, there are certainly each is a nationalist. There's no doubt about that. Each is a nationalist, but they do not have the same role, and the same is with Serbia and Croatia. These are not the same roles. Both can play a problematic and a positive role, and Croatia can play a very positive role, and has in the past played a very positive role. And Bosnia and Croats have played an indispensable role to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I witnessed this, Esmir, myself personally in the Brčko arbitration in 1999, and the indispensable role that Bosnian Croats played in making the case for the decision that ultimately was made for a district. Why? Because without the Bosnian Croat demand to go back to their homes in Brčko and to have democratic coexistence in Brčko, without that, this would have the appearance of simply a zero-sum territorial dispute, an effort by Bosniaks to bisect and cut off Banja Luka and the western part of Republika Srpska. And it was the Croat push, Bosnian Croats who believe in Bosnia and Herzegovina and make it their home, that was critical. So I don't like these, and I object to these easy comparisons and so forth. Milorad Dodik is the principal destructive actor in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he is backed by Belgrade. And this is the principal mistake of the United States and the European Union, is to see Alexander Vučić as a partner and a factor of stability. He is not. This is the source, the main source, and I've written this with colleagues in a report here at SAIS and Wilson Center about this. The principal problem is always what it was. The effort to destroy Bosnia and Herzegovina emerged from Belgrade. It did not emerge principally or originally from Zagreb. So that's the challenge, is to address this, to work through these issues with the existing Dayton Agreement and with the court cases, the several court cases, to take advantage of that opportunity for reform. And please ask any specific questions you have about any of these actors, Čović, Izetbegovic.
I ask you about Izetbegovic because he has a political responsibility here, especially in federation, but also he has responsibility on the level of Bosnia and Herzegovina because he has a member of presidency. He's a speaker or deputy speaker of House of Peoples and represents one of the largest political parties. So you said about Čović and Komšić and Dodik. Where is the responsibility of Bakir Izetbegovic in all of this?
Bakir Izetbegovic has enormous responsibility here. Look, everyone has seen his most recent remarks, but I contextualize these. Again, you have to be mindful of the remarks, the pre-existing remarks of Dodik, but we can zero in on Bakir Izetbegovic and his the remarks that he made recently about counting the number of hunters and the drones that we have. This is what kind of approach is this to build a civic state? This is how you build a civic state, by threatening like this. So Bakir Izetbegovic has enormous responsibility here as well as a nationalist, as a Bosniak nationalist, not representing giving lip service to civic state, but not actually carrying out policies or positions that that would achieve that noble aim. So. That's my answer on Bakir Izetbegovic. Okay.
You have mentioned U.S. administration. I know that you know them very well. A lot of people from your time in U.S. diplomacy is now in active diplomacy of United States, starting with Joe Biden, Tony Blinken, Chris Hill, Mike Murphy, Jim O'Brien, all of them, they have exceptional knowledge about Bosnia and Herzegovina, but it looks like they're going from mistake to mistake to mistake and not implementing the right things here. Is there anything what the current administration should do to fix this situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina?
Yes, Esmir, and I know each of those individuals that you named personally, and I have high respect for each of them. And so beginning with Secretary Blinken, Tony Blinken, Chris Hill, Michael Murphy, each of the individuals that you mentioned there, and including Kosovo, Jeff Hovenier. These are outstanding individuals who bring deep knowledge and experience. Here, this is the mistake, and the mistake that they make is being replicated today, Esmir, in Bosnia-Herzegovina. This equation of Serbia and Croatia, I'm going to repeat this again, these are not the same. Despite the outrageous remarks of President Milanovic, disgraceful remarks and positions of President Milanovic of Croatia, it's a mistake to equate Serbia and Croatia, and it's a mistake to fixate now on just this problem without realizing that the basis of the problem lies in Belgrade. That's the main obstacle to progress, and that's the source, the continuing source of instability. Let me quickly say about Croatia. Croatia's policies towards Bosnia-Herzegovina, unlike Serbia's, have changed, have been quite supportive at times, and that goes back to President Stipe Mesic and to HDZ-led governments, including by Sanader, by Kosor, which have been quite supportive of Bosnia-Herzegovina, including the famous visit of President Josipovic, who visited Ahmići. And this resulted, at first, there was criticism in Zagreb, and then there was a declaration under the Prime Minister Kosor, a HDZ leader, of support for Bosnia-Herzegovina. Now, that has changed. Those attitudes have changed, and we see, of course, a diametric change by President Milanovic, and we see problematic stances there, but we should not confuse and conflate Croatia with Serbia. Croatia is a member of NATO, a member of the EU. Croatia is a very close strategic partner with the United States, and we should not conflate and confuse that, and nor should we fixate only on Dragan Čović as the only bad actor here. Again, the point is to find solutions, and let's turn to that. The big mistake of the United States, the strategic mistake in the Balkans, is this approach towards Serbia, approach towards Alexander Vučić as if he is a, quote, partner, as if he is a, quote, factor of stability. He is not. This game in Bosnia-Herzegovina with Milorad Dodik, where Vučić comes in as the supposed restraint of Dodik, this is a charade, as is Vučić's interest in joining the European Union. This is a charade. He's a charlatan, and we've fallen for this too long. And the proof of this is no more recent and clear than yesterday, with the visit of Interior Minister Vulin in Moscow, meeting with Foreign Minister Lavrov, Sergei Lavrov in Moscow. This is a disgrace. What is, first of all, Vulin, the Interior Minister, doing, meeting with the Foreign Minister? This is legitimizing a criminal Russian regime with its unprovoked aggression against Ukraine and with its continuing support for instability in the Balkans, in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and in Kosovo, principally, and not only. And so,
can I stop you? Can I stop you
the
there?
principal mistake of the United States, please.
Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, has said in a press release following a meeting with Alexander Volin yesterday, said, quote, that the Lavrov says President Alexander Vučić and Vladimir Putin spoke by phone to compare positions and coordinate further steps between the two countries. What this could mean for the region of Western Balkans, especially for Bosnia and Herzegovina, if Alexander Vučić and Vladimir Putin are comparing position and coordinating further steps, because it doesn't say that this is on energy or gas supply, but it just says the further steps.
It's a disgrace. We have to remember this. This is a complete and total disgrace. It's been 6 months since this unprovoked Russian aggression. It's 6 months that Serbia, which is an EU candidate, has not put on sanctions on Russia. It's a complete disgrace, and we need also, this is in evidence now with this so-called crisis in Kosovo. This is a completely artificial crisis created in Belgrade. There's a very straightforward solution to this issue over license plates and ID cards. It's very simple. Serbia could simply accept the Kosovo documents and not the Kosovo issued personal documents, which the vast majority of Kosovo Serbs have accepted and have. The vast majority, approaching 90% of Kosovo Serbs, have these documents, and Serbia could simply agree to accept these, and Alexander Vučić could easily present this and sell this as some innocuous policy that's in Serbia's interest. Instead, he's provoking, he's using some of the most disgraceful, provocative language that came from the war in Bosnia. He said that Kosovar Albanians have lists of names of Serbs to be liquidated. This is an incredibly incendiary, provocative, false charge that no Serb leader, not just Vučić, ever should utter, particularly because this was used in Bosnia and Herzegovina in 1992. This was used as the basis for the brutal, ultimately genocidal ethnic cleansing that took place. This so-called lie that Bosniaks had lists of names of Serbs. The same falsehood was used to violent ends in Bosnia and Herzegovina and is being employed by Alexander Vučić, who himself made one of the most disgraceful remarks of any politician in the entire region in July 1995 in the Serbian parliament. And we know about that. If you kill one Serb, we'll kill 100 Muslims. Disgraceful remark. So for him to be using this type of rhetoric again is an outrage. And it's a reminder, again, the problems in the region are in Belgrade. There will be no stability in the region with an anti-democratic Serbia. It's Serbia's movement towards democracy. This is the key, and that's what the United States and its EU allies should be pushing for, and not tolerating continued support and alignment of Belgrade with Moscow. Please.
Professor, what about NATO? Because Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has announced in Madrid that Bosnia and Herzegovina will get the special program of assistance, technical and also political assistance, but also they are playing a huge role in Kosovo through KFOR, but also there is a threat by Russia that they will try to veto EUFOR mission in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is just approaching in November, and the NATO can play a role without the mandate of United Nations here in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Yes, okay. First, we know KFOR is in Kosovo, and thankfully so, and there have been reinforced troop movements into the north of the country, and no one wants to see, at least not KFOR, wants to see any violence or confrontation. Everyone wants to see, and there can be, a peaceful and productive resolution that works for Kosovar Albanians and works for Kosovo Serbs to this license plate issue. So that, let's be very clear. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, look, it's also clear. The message to Belgrade, to Banja Luka, to Moscow is the same. You get rid of EUFOR, you get NATO. It's very simple. That's the message, and I believe, in fact, that message has penetrated to some degree, because I have not seen Milorad Dodik making a strong case for Russia lately to veto EUFOR. But that's the message. You get rid of EUFOR, you get NATO. So there's just, it's simply not tolerable that there's going to be a Russian veto over a peacekeeping presence in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And one last reminder about NATO that comes here. NATO, and we know this for proof, in Kosovo, serves all citizens equally. And KFOR in Kosovo is very popular and highly respected by Kosovo Serbs and in Serbia itself. So everyone knows that. And the interests of the US, of NATO, of the EU are for these issues to be resolved in peaceful, democratic way with advancement towards NATO, particularly Bosnia and Herzegovina, to advance, and Kosovo towards NATO and towards the EU. And that point cannot be underscored enough, please.
Professor, you were part of our war some 30 almost years ago, but now we have a war which is just, and this is understatement, but just 6 months old in Ukraine. And how do you see this situation? Many have predicted that Vladimir Putin would just roll over Ukraine and finish everything in just few days, but Ukrainians are holding up for 6 months, and now they're going through a counteroffensive on the south of the country.
Okay, we'll turn to that, but let's keep Balkans in focus when we turn here. This is another problem that people don't understand with Serbia's failure to put sanctions on the EU, as if these don't matter, as if Serbia is just another country in Europe. Part of these sanctions are to shut down Russian media outlets, and that includes Sputnik Serbia, which continues to promote.
And Russia Today, which is trying to get the newsroom in Serbia.
Russia Today, and there's been reports, we've seen reports in Belgrade, statements, quoted statements there from responsible officials of media about that there would be, the application of Russia Today would be welcome. We've seen these kind of positions, and we've seen furthermore, Serbian officials reinforce and amplify the narratives, the pro-Russian narratives that are disgraceful and deserve no amplification whatsoever. And so we come back to this problem of sanctions and this mistaken perspective of the US and EU, of Alexander Vučić as some kind of partner and factor of stability in the region. This is any country that doesn't put sanctions on Russia, and in addition, hosting Sputnik Serbia, amplifying these narratives, is a factor of instability. And that could not be clearer with yesterday's visit to Moscow of Lavrov, of Vulin meeting Lavrov. So that's clear. And again, that's why this is such a mistake, to my dismay, this uproar over Schmidt's proposals and this complete distraction of instead of tackling the difficulty and complexity as Judge Chiman has acknowledged exists in these issues. So that's again the real problem. With respect to the war, look, we have to see, and everyone has to acknowledge the heroism of the Ukrainian people. This is just an incredible dedication and selflessness, and we should note that this is not just, the people who couldn't get out of serving who were there. Ukrainians, many have come back. Wealthy Ukrainians have stayed in the country. One of the richest men in the country lost his life in a shelling. He could easily have gone to any country. And we owe Ukrainians our support, and so does Serbia. And Serbia also owes not just lip service with false support for UN resolutions because they talk about sovereignty and territorial integrity, and they interpret that as helping them on Kosovo. That's not supporting Ukraine. Serbia, let's remember, Serbia is a big producer of ammunition and weapons. Serbia could be providing that ammunition to Ukraine. Bulgaria provides significant amounts of ammunition to Ukraine, very important. So let's keep this in perspective. This is where the problem is with Ukraine, is in Belgrade, this continuing support for the Russian position and the Russian narratives.
Let me ask you about another thing for the end of this interview, and that's the situation with the former president, Donald Trump. We are seeing this story about classified documents on unsecured location called Mar-a-Lago on Florida, his home in Florida. This is the first time when we are seeing a former president in a situation like this, but also we are seeing one person who's popping up from time to time in Western Balkans, who's a key player to Donald Trump when it comes to the region of Western Balkans, and that's Rick Grenell. And a former president recently says that if he wins in 2024, that we will hear more and more from Rick Grenell. Can you explain to our viewers this situation with the papers, how the situation actually functions for the former presidents, and also should we be afraid here in the region if Trump wins in 24 with Rick Grenell popping up from time to time here in the region of Balkans?
Yes, I'll answer. The last question is very simple. The answer is yes. You should be afraid, and we should be afraid here in the United States if Trump were to win again. This would be a disaster first of all, for my country, the United States of America, and it would be a disaster for all those who believe in democracy and human rights in the world. It would be a catastrophe, and for the people of the Balkans. So that's answering that. And I'm going to answer your second question and quickly explain this, and I'm going to come back and link this again to my main theme, which is really an appeal to people in Bosnia and Herzegovina to take advantage of the opportunity that you have. We don't have that opportunity that the citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina have. You have these bitter ethno-national divisions. But people are rational. Judge Mirsad Ceman is rational. He doesn't agree with the verdict in Lubitsch's case, but he tackles these issues. He doesn't say, oh, I don't need to deal with constituent peoples. That doesn't exist anymore. I can just ignore that. Croats are overrepresented. I can just ignore them there. I can just ignore these concerns. That's the difference. We don't have that opportunity that you all have in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Why? Because the divide here is one over facts that is not over facts. There is a refusal to acknowledge facts. We have a political divide here that's grounded in rejection of facts and rejection of truth. We have one that is bought into conspiracy theories that are the leading viewpoint, propelling support for Donald Trump. This, for example, this QAnon. We don't have the opportunity that you have in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We cannot engage with someone who believes in QAnon. There's no engagement with this person. There's no engagement that's possible with followers of Donald Trump who insist against all evidence that Donald Trump won the election. We don't have an opportunity to engage in that. But you do in Bosnia and Herzegovina. You do have that opportunity. I've spoken with Croats in Mostar who have no time for Dragan Čović and do not support HDZ, but they support the amendments that Schmidt has proposed, or at least that have been reported. And they have reasons for doing this. I don't know that they're right, and I don't say that they're necessarily right, but I say this: you have the opportunity and you have the obligation in your country. If you want a civic state, you have to have civic discourse. You have to engage with fellow citizens in ways, and you have opportunities we do not have here in the United States. We cannot engage with the vast majority of the Republican Party. We just saw Liz Cheney, who did a valiant, courageous effort participating and calling out Donald Trump and calling out the lie. She was defeated in Wyoming in her primary by 2/3. 2/3 of the Republican voters said, we don't want someone who speaks truth. Do you see the difference in Bosnia and Herzegovina with our situation? Our situation politically is worse in some ways. We have no possibility to have a rational dialogue with people who reject basic facts. You do. And I know Croats in Mostar, in Kislyak, in other places, in Brčko, and I know Bosniaks in Sarajevo, in Brčko, in Kislyak, in other places, in Mostar, who accept the facts and understand the reality that this is not so simple, that it is not just a question of saying, oh, Sejdić-Finci civic state like this, and we don't need to deal with constituent people anymore. And I note here that Mr. Radončić just yesterday said, and I believe he's correct in this, no to Čović's third entity and no to Croats as a minority. So this is the kind of acknowledgement, at least, that there's considerations of the other side. This is where BiH lies. This is the way out of this crisis. And this is the way to begin to then tackle the inherent problems, the fundamental flaws of the Dayton Agreement, this Republika Srpska approach of having all the rights and none of the obligations and none of the responsibility in Republika Srpska, all the ethno-national rights and none of the responsibility of making the country function. That's where the problem lies. And my appeal to the citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina is now to take advantage of this opportunity. Test Schmidt, say to Schmidt, here's a joint compromise that we've agreed. Bosniaks, Croats, others, citizens, Jews, Roma, here's a compromise proposal that we put forward. Here, Schmidt, implement this and test him and take him at his word. Please.
Professor, thank you so very much for your time and for this very wide-ranging conversation, as I was expecting that it will be with you, because you have probably one of the vast and biggest knowledges about the region of Western Balkans.
Thank you so much, Esmir. I always appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and to speak with your viewers. Thank you.